Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 19. For the next few days, Jinwang kept Yeshu in his bedroom to recuperate. Recuperate my ass. It was just that he didn't exercise often, so his muscles were sore after standing for a few hours. He could have recovered in a day or two, but Jinwang acted as if he was seriously injured. He didn't let him get off the bed for several days and carried him wherever he went. Yeshu felt uncomfortable all over. Where are you going now? Before Yeshu's feet could touch the floor, Jinwang immediately looked up from his memorial. Yeshu paused and felt a little guilty, but he quickly regained his composure. He confidently said, I want to sleep, so I'm going to take a bath. Jinwang put down his memorial, got up and walked to Yeshu's side. Yeshu acted as if he was facing a great enemy. What are you doing? Carrying you to the bath. Yeshu was furious. I could have walked a long time ago. Jinwang ignored him and directly carried him in his arms. Yeshu struggled with all his might, but the latter gently pinched him on the back of his waist. His entire body felt as if it had been electrocuted, and even his spinal cord went numb. In the past few days, his body had become 10,000 times more sensitive than before, and he couldn't touch any part of his body. He was most afraid that Jinwang would do this to him. Yeshu stopped struggling and obediently allowed Jinwang to carry him to the bath. The hot spring water was poured into the bath from the tap above. Jinwang placed Yeshu on the edge of the pool and reached out to undo his clothes. Yeshu clutched his clothes tightly. I can do this myself, right? Jinwang's hand paused and he took half a step back. Yeshu wasn't afraid of being stared at. As he undid his outer robe, he quietly muttered, I'm not that delicate. You always make me feel like I can't walk. Jinwang keenly noticed his choice of words and frowned. What's that? Yeshu. It's nothing. Jinwang wanted to ask more, but Yeshu waved at him and said, Get out. I want to take a bath. Then be careful. After Jinwang finished speaking, he turned and left. The temperature of the pool was just right. Yeshu soaked himself in the water and closed his eyes comfortably. His slender legs rested in the bathing pool made of jade. His toes gently stepped on the water, feeling the water slowly flowing past him. This pair of legs used to have no feeling. Yeshu was born with a disability in both legs. He had lived in an orphanage since he was young and needed someone to take care of him. That was the darkest period of Yeshu's life. Perhaps it was because his childhood experience was too dark. His memories of that time were not very clear. He only remembered that on a certain day a few years ago, he had suddenly regained feeling in his legs when he woke up. No one could explain why. Even until now, Yeshu was still puzzled by what the doctors called a medical miracle. That was also when his stomach problems started. However, there were gains and losses, so Yeshu did not take it to heart. Yeshu was drowsy from soaking in the water. He did not know how much time had passed when he heard the sound of water. Someone carried him out of the water. Didn't you say you could do it? You fell asleep in the bathing tub again. Jinwang snorted unhappily. He wrapped Yeshu in his outer robe and carried him out of the bathing pool. Yeshu stretched out his arms and wrapped them around Jinwang's neck. He murmured in his sleep, Don't disturb me. When Jinwang saw him like this, he knew that this person must be dreaming again. He carried Yeshu out of the room and chuckled, How did you scold me in your dreams? Tell me about it. Yeshu only snorted and did not answer. Jinwang quickly carried him back to his bedroom and placed him on the bed. Yeshu had stayed in the water for too long. His cheeks were slightly pink, and his long eyelashes were slightly moist and trembling. Jinwang's fingertips brushed across those slightly moist eyelashes and traced along the side of his face. His fingertips landed on those sparkling and soft lips. Those soft lips unconsciously parted in his sleep. Jinwang used his fingertips to gently caress them. His fingertips touched those lips one last time. Just as he was about to get up, he heard the other party call out weakly. Aun. Jin Wang's movements paused. In fact, Yeshu had not called him this for a long time. Ever since he ascended the throne, he had always treated this person with the courtesy of a ruler and subject. They had even parted on bad terms. After the assassination attempt, Yeshu had called him by this name several times, but it was always for a motive, and he could not help but feel disgusted. However, this time was different. The youth's voice was warm and soft, like a cat gently scratching at the softest part of his heart. Jin Wang bent down and stared at that sleeping face. If you were usually as obedient as you are today, how good would that be? Then, he lowered his head and kissed Yeshu's forehead. Good night, Ashu. 10 days later, the Emperor of Changlu led his unmarried imperial consort to the ancestral temple to pay respects to the ancestors. The accompanying carriages and horses passed through the entire Chang'an street. The common people on both sides of the street saw them off and curiously sized up the carriages. Everyone wanted to know what the emperor's imperial consort looked like. However, no one caught sight of him. The imperial consort and the emperor rode together in the imperial carriage. They were tightly covered by curtains and not even half of their clothes could be seen. In the afternoon, the carriages arrived at the ancestral temple. The Son of Heaven's imperial carriage stopped in front of the ancestral temple. The accompanying officials all bowed down to pay their respects. The head eunuch lifted the curtains. The emperor finally appeared with his imperial consort. The legendary imperial consort was draped in a snow-white fox fur coat, and a white veil covered most of his face. Only a pair of bright and clear eyes could be seen. The emperor led the imperial consort into the ancestral temple from the front door. Only then did the officials enter from the side door. The process of the ancestral worship ceremony was complicated. Even though the emperor had given orders to simplify the process, it would still take 3 days. The front hall of the ancestral temple had already been properly decorated. The ceremonial bells were rung, and on the incense table, a meter-tall incense was lit. Its smell made Yeshu feel nauseous. Yeshu's footsteps paused and his stomach churned. Jin Wang immediately noticed his abnormality. Are you feeling unwell? I want to vomit. Yeshu's face was pale. He rubbed his stomach. Motion sickness again. Jin Wang was silent for a moment. He looked at the lit incense on the table and understood. He was the only person who could treat morning sickness as motion sickness and convince himself so thoroughly. Yeshu couldn't stand the smell of the incense, but he didn't dare to vomit during the ancestral worship ceremony, so he was forcing himself to endure. Jin Wang saw this and tilted his head to Gao Jin. Take the young master to rest first. Gao Jin was startled and hurriedly said, But, Your Majesty, according to the rules, the young master has to light incense with you to be considered to have comforted the ancestors. Jin Wang coldly glanced at him. Gao Jin's voice paused and then he bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Several servants quickly helped Yeshu away. The accompanying officials were standing far away and didn't know what had happened. Now that they saw the imperial consort leave, they exploded. Who would leave in the middle of the ancestral worship ceremony? Even the previous emperor's most beloved imperial concubine didn't receive such treatment. This was completely against the rules. Everyone only dared to have doubts in their hearts, but no one dared to raise any objections. Only the Taekang temple official, who was in charge of preparing for the ancestral worship ceremony, was standing closest and had the clearest view. He stared at the imperial consort's departing figure and felt a little confused. Why did that person's brows look so familiar? Yeshu was sent back to the ancestral temple side hall to rest. The servants opened the incense burner in the room and placed a small piece of incense in it. After leaving the front hall, Yeshu's condition improved a lot. He asked, What is this? The servants replied, This is incense to relieve the young master's feelings of nausea. His Majesty ordered the servant to put it in. Is it used to treat motion sickness? The servant's expressions became very subtle. This was actually a concoction made by the imperial physicians to relieve morning sickness. With His Majesty's orders, the servants didn't dare to say much. They could only reply in a low voice. Yes. Yeshu didn't suspect anything. You're considerate. You may leave. The servants bowed and left. Yeshu rested in the room for a while. Under the effects of the incense, the lingering nausea finally dissipated. He lazily lay on the couch for a while. Then, someone gently knocked on the door. Yeshu quickly sat up and said, "Come in." Chang Yuan pushed the door open and entered. "How is it?" Chang Yuan took out a rolled-up craft paper and presented it to Yeshu. "This subordinate has already drawn the route out of the ancestral temple and the weak points of the defense on this paper. Young master, please take a look." Yeshu took the map and quickly scanned it. "Good. We'll move out tonight." Chang Yuan seemed to hesitate for a moment. Yeshu saw this and asked, "What do you want to say?" "This subordinate." Chang Yuan lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "His Majesty treats young master sincerely." "Does young master really want to leave?" "That's not sincerity." Yeshu put the map into his clothes and casually explained, "Jin Wang is the ruler of a country. Thunder, rain, and dew are all part of the ruler's grace. No matter how good he treats others, to others, it's nothing more than grace. Since it's grace, it can be taken back at any time because of that person's nature. Moreover, that affection was for the original owner of this body. To put it bluntly, even this grace wasn't actually for him." Chang Yuan said, "This subordinate doesn't understand." "If you don't understand, then you wouldn't understand." Chang Yuan's point of view was different from Yeshu's. He didn't expect this person to understand. Yeshu asked, "Have you finished preparing for tonight's plan?" Chang Yuan replied, "This subordinate will lure the nearby hidden guards away tonight and use a bamboo whistle to send out a signal. Young master, please be sure to calm His Majesty down before that happens. Take the opportunity to leave and meet up with this subordinate at the foot of the mountain." The two of them finalized the plan for tonight, and Chang Yuan left. It wasn't until nightfall that Jin Wang returned to the side chamber. When he returned, Yeshu was leaning against the couch and reading a book. There was a fire burning inside the room, so it was much warmer than outside. Yeshu placed a snow-white fox fur blanket on a small table next to the couch. He was only wearing a thin plain robe, which made his figure seem even thinner. One of his legs rested on the edge of the bed and swayed unconsciously, revealing a section of his bare and fair ankle. Jin Wang walked forward and lifted his leg. Sure enough, he felt a cold sensation. "How many times have I told you that you're not allowed to run around the house barefooted?" Yeshu hurriedly retracted his leg back into the blanket. "I know." Jin Wang smiled and was about to lean over when Yeshu covered his nose and moved away. "You smell so strongly of incense and candles. Go take a bath first." This was the first time the emperor had been disliked for his scent. He had no choice but to take a bath and change his clothes. After dinner, Jin Wang continued to deal with government affairs. Yeshu brought him tea. "Your Majesty, please have some tea," Yeshu said in a low voice. Jin Wang raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at him. "Why are you so obedient today?" Yeshu asked, "What are you saying? Was I not obedient in the past?" Jin Wang glanced at him. His eyes were naked as he asked in return, "What do you think?" Jin Wang took the teacup and was about to drink when he suddenly paused and lowered his head to smell it. "You made this yourself." Yeshu's fingertips curled up and he was inexplicably nervous. "You? How did you know?" "It's oversteeped." Jin Wang took a sip of tea and smiled. "In the future, you can leave this kind of thing to the palace maids. You don't have to do everything yourself." Yeshu narrowed his eyes. "I understand." His obedient appearance greatly pleased Jin Wang. Jin Wang patted the couch next to him and Yeshu obediently sat down. Jin Wang hugged Yeshu and continued to read the memorials. The two of them were very close to each other. Yeshu's hand rested on Yeshu's waist, which quickly made Yeshu uncomfortable. Perhaps it was because of the argument that day that Jin Wang had developed some conscience. For many days, Jin Wang did not touch him like before. The contact between the two of them was limited to ordinary hugs. It was not enough. Yeshu moved without a sound and leaned his head on Jin Wang's shoulder. When he raised his head, he just happened to be able to see the side of Jin Wang's face. As he watched, Yeshu felt his body gradually heat up. Jin Wang slammed the memorial and pressed the space between his eyebrows. Yeshu suddenly came back to his senses and asked in a low voice, "You're not going to read anymore? How am I supposed to read this?" Yeshu did not understand. Jin Wang laughed, "Shu, don't look at me like that again." Yeshu looked away, "I'm sorry." Jin Wang sighed and lowered his head to rest on Yeshu's shoulder. He hugged Yeshu even tighter. "Are you thinking about it?" His voice was very soft. When his breath landed on Yeshu's ear, half of Yeshu's body went limp and numb. Jin Wang knew why Yeshu was like this. The imperial physician had said that when an omega was pregnant, they would be extremely dependent on their alpha and would be easily aroused. However, since he was less than 3 months pregnant, the baby's heart would be unstable and an intercourse is not advisable. The alpha could only use pheromones to soothe their omega. Oh! Yeshu's entire body trembled. Jin Wang kissed the back of his ear. This kiss was gentle and lingering, but Yeshu's entire body trembled. His eyes quickly became moist. "No." Jin Wang placed one hand on Yeshu's shoulder and held him tightly in his arms. He lifted his neck so that Yeshu could not escape. In a flash, the alpha's pheromone was injected. Yeshu collapsed in Jin Wang's arms, exhausted. Jin Wang picked him up and placed him back on the bed. His palm lovingly stroked Yeshu's hair. "Bear with it for a little longer. Just bear with it for 2 more months." Yeshu's unfocused gaze slowly sharpened. He asked in a low voice, "Why? Why 2 more months?" His voice sounded a little aggrieved. Omegas needed to be comforted by their alphas. However, soothing them using pheromones could not be compared to true intercourse. It would not easily satisfy them. Jin Wang was a little hesitant. Yeshu had been very obedient these past few days. It seemed that after that day, he had really thought it through and wanted to stay by Jin Wang's side. The atmosphere in the room was ambiguous and warm. It was as if everything was the best atmosphere to tell the truth. Jin Wang's hand slid down Yeshu's arm and landed on his lower abdomen. "I have a secret that I haven't told you." Jin Wang's voice was gentle. Yeshu asked, "What is it?" Jin Wang tilted his head and smiled, then said softly, "Your place." His voice trailed off. The dizziness in his head had come without warning. Jin Wang quickly realized something. His brows furrowed tightly. That cup of tea. Before he could finish speaking, Jin Wang fell to the side of the bed and quickly lost consciousness. Yeshu. Yeshu lay on the bed for a moment to calm down. Then, he turned over and laid Jin Wang flat on his back. He leaned over Jin Wang's side and stared at the handsome face that was still sleeping soundly. He had drugged that cup of tea. It was the sleeping elixir that Mujuking had given to him. In order to prevent Jin Wang from noticing, he had deliberately steeped the tea for a long time. Sure enough, this person did not suspect anything. Yeshu took out the human skin mask that Chang Yuan had prepared for him and put it on. He muttered softly, "Bastard Jin Wang, now you can't bully me anymore. Whether you have old feelings or grudges with that Yeshu, it has nothing to do with me. Why are you taking revenge on me? However, I might be able to find a way to leave this place in exchange for your Yeshu. Even if I can't find a way, don't come looking for me. I don't really want to see you again." The sound of a bamboo whistle came from outside the door. Yeshu had just finished preparing. He walked to the bedside and tucked Jin Wang in. He got up and was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. Speaking of which, what did this person want to say to him just now? Yeshu looked at the person sleeping soundly, then lowered his head to look at his flat abdomen. He blinked sleepily. Forget it, I'll leave first. He opened the door and left the bedroom. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 20. Sure enough, there were no longer any guards outside the side hall. Yeshu had intentionally memorized the path during the day, so he followed his memory and easily slipped out of the ancestral shrine. And then he got lost. The Imperial Ancestral Temple was not a small facility, so the main mountain roads near the ancestral shrine were all heavily guarded. Thus, the map that Chang Yuan had left Yeshu only showed the small mountain paths. But the way the map was drawn, it was simple and abstract, making it impossible for people to follow it. After circling around the same forest several times, Yeshu finally accepted the fact that he was once again lost. He sat on a rock by the side of the mountain path, looked up at the cold moon in the sky, and sighed helplessly. Why did he always have to circle around the forest every time he tried to escape? It really makes things too difficult for him to have such a bad sense of direction. Yeshu sat in place for a while, then suddenly he heard someone walking over from not too far away. Yeshu still had lingering fears from his previous experience, so he quickly hid behind the rock. He crouched down, curled up his hands and feet, and completely hid himself behind the rock and tall grass. He had just hidden himself when he heard someone talking. We can't go on like this, we have to quickly think of something. What can we do? His Majesty found that vixen from who knows where and is so infatuated with him that even the Imperial Ancestral Temple made an exception for him. I really can't think of anything else. Yeshu. So this was how the other people saw him. Yeshu looked past the overlapping bushes and saw the faces of the two people who were conversing. The two young men happened to be standing in front of the rock. Yeshu recognized them and realized that they were the officials who had accompanied him today, Duan Chenzi, the minister in charge of Taikang Temple, and Zhou Yan, the general in charge of the patrol. Yeshu didn't know how everyone in the court was discussing his existence, and Jin Wang hadn't told him either, but he had his guesses. After all, since ancient times, all emperors couldn't escape from having children and choosing a successor. His Majesty turned up into a cut sleeve, so it was easy to imagine how anxious these officials were. General, you can't say that. His Majesty was temporarily deceived, and as his officials, we can't just let him be. We have to advise him. Advise. The person beside him snorted coldly. Didn't the previous lords go and kneel in the imperial study for an entire day as punishment? If Lord Duan wishes to give it a try, feel free to do so. The two men walked past the bluestone and continued their discussion as they walked forward. Yeshu heaved a sigh of relief. This Taikang Temple official was a subordinate of the original and had been mentioned in the novel. This minister of Taikang was ranked first amongst the Juking, and he had some prestige and status in the court. He did not have any bad intentions. However, the emperor was not very fond of him. It was due to no other reason than that this person was too worried about the emperor's marriage. This person was a minor supporting character in the book. Yeshu did not remember his plot clearly. In his memory, this person seemed to have done something that had infuriated Jin Wang. As for what he had done exactly, Yeshu couldn't remember at the moment. His thoughts drifted away and he did not realize the changes that was happening in his own body. A fruity scent of green plums spread from his body. When an omega was pregnant, their pheromones would often go out of control. It was not something that could be controlled by anyone. Ever since the imperial physician discovered that Yeshu was pregnant, Jin Wang no longer gave him any pheromone-suppressing pills. Instead, he was using his own alpha pheromones to cover up Yeshu's body scent. Tonight, he had come out in a hurry. The pheromones that Jin Wang had injected into him was not enough to safely get him through the night. At that time, Jin Wang's pheromone just happened to lose its effect. Of course, Yeshu did not know about this. He gently tugged at his collar, trying to dispel the heat that was gradually surging in his body. In the distance, the two men who had walked away stopped on their tracks. Duan Chenzi asked, "General, what's wrong? This smell is..." Zhou Yan frowned slightly and turned back to look at the path they had come from, an omega. Duan Chenzi was a mediocre person, but Zhou Yan, who was the protector of the country, was a genuine alpha. Once the pheromone that had gone out of control was exposed, it could not be stopped. Yeshu's consciousness quickly began to blur. He gripped the grass beside him tightly, trying his best not to make any noise. At this moment, a brand new smell filled the air. This smell was as strong as rosin, exploding in the forest without any pity as it chased after the omega who was hiding in the shadows. This smell was different from the pheromone of the alpha that had marked him. Not only did the smell not make him feel comfortable, it made him feel extremely oppressed, almost to the point where he could not breathe. Yeshu lost all his strength and any resistance. He fell to the ground and vaguely felt someone walk up to him. Is this really an omega?" Duan Chenzi asked. Under the moonlight, a youth dressed in black curled up in the grass. His tightly bound sleeves revealed a small section of his slender white wrist, as if it could be broken with a single hand. He unconsciously grabbed the grass below him, his brows furrowed and his lips slightly pursed. He was so beautiful that it could move anyone's heart. Yeshu had even chosen to disguise himself as Zhangju, though it was still slightly inferior to his original appearance. Zhou Yan suppressed the lust in his eyes. "That's right, this is an omega." He was about to step forward, but Duan Chenzi stopped him. "General, what are you intending to do?" Zhou Yan was inexplicably impatient, but he also sobered up a little when Duan Chenzi stopped him. He took a deep breath and said, "This person has appeared here for an unknown reason. He should be handed over to His Majesty to deal with." Duan Chenzi did not move aside. "General, please don't be like this. We should discuss this matter further." "What's there to discuss about?" Duan Chenzi's eyes lit up. He was so excited that his voice trembled. "This is an omega, a 1 in a million omega, an omega can give birth." "Zhou Yan. What do you mean? Come closer and I'll tell you." Yeshu could no longer hear what they were saying. Even if he could, he did not have the ability to process the information anymore. His mind was a mess, and he quickly lost consciousness under the influence of an alpha's pheromone. Before he lost consciousness, Yeshu only had one thought left in his mind. He really was not compatibility with the forest and he could not run away. The next morning, the sound of porcelain shattering could be heard from the side hall where the emperor was staying. The imperial guards were kneeling outside the door. Inside the hall, a black figure was being escorted by 2 imperial guards and kneeling on the ground. Jin Wang sat in the main seat, his face terrifyingly gloomy. "You said that you agreed to meet him at the foot of the mountain. Where is he now?" The person kneeling at the foot of the hall was injured. He lowered his head and did not answer for a while. Chang Yuan had waited at the foot of the mountain for an entire night, but Yeshu had not come. Instead, it was the emperor's imperial guards that had arrived. He had thought that Yeshu did not manage to escape due to some accident, but now it seemed that he had indeed left the ancestral shrine. But where could he have gone? The teacup shattered at Chang Yuan's feet and the boiling hot tea splashed all over his body. Before Chang Yuan could react, he was suddenly gripped by a powerful force. Chang Yuan let out a short whimper from his throat and his face quickly turned red. He forced himself to raise his head and met Jin Wang's red eyes. "If something really happens to him, I will make sure you suffer a fate worse than death." Jin Wang's voice was low and hoarse, and his eyes were cold and malicious. "Speak." Chang Yuan grabbed Jin Wang's wrist and said with difficulty, "This subordinate really doesn't know." Jin Wang's eyes immediately revealed an undisguised murderous intent. Chang Yuan even felt that Jin Wang would crush his throat on the spot. But Jin Wang simply threw him back to the Imperial Guards. "Take him away." The Imperial Guards quickly dragged the coughing man away. Jin Wang returned to his chair and sat down, then closed his eyes in exhaustion. He never thought that Yeshu would dare to drug him. He didn't know if it was the news of Yeshu's pregnancy that made him let his guard down, or if it was that person's acting these past few days that was so good that he didn't suspect his intentions at all. All that pretense at obedience was for today's sake. However, if the plan was to escape with his aid, why was there no trace of him now? Jin Wang didn't even dare to think about what a pregnant Omega who didn't know how to defend himself would encounter outside. Head Steward Gao Jin pushed open the door and walked in. "Your Majesty, you." Jin Wang suddenly opened his eyes. "Have you found him?" "No, Your Majesty." Gao Jin said in a low voice. "Your hand, do you want this servant to find an imperial physician to bandage it for Your Majesty?" Jin Wang was startled and then lowered his head to look. The hand hanging by his side had been cut by a broken piece of porcelain and was bleeding profusely. He laughed bitterly and ignored it. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Pass down my order. Immediately recall all the spies sent to the capital. Have all the spies and shadow guards search. Starting from the ancestral shrine, dig 3 feet into the ground if you must. If he is alive, Zhen want to see him. If he's dead, Zhen want to see his corpse. As Your Majesty commands." Gao Jin asked again, "Then the ancestral worship ceremony. Postpone it for now." Jin Wang said tiredly, "The news of the imperial consort's escape cannot be known by anyone. Just say that this emperor is unwell and that the ancestral worship ceremony will be held at another date." Gao Jin, "As His Majesty commands." From that day onwards, all of Jin Wang's spies and shadow guards began to search in secret. But there was still no news of Yeshu's whereabouts. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. Any hint of Yeshu was like a stone sinking into the ocean, disappearing without a trace. Aside from losing control of his emotions on the first day, Jin Wang appeared to be very calm henceforward. The imperial procession returned to the capital on the 3rd day. The emperor even began the morning court session the next day, and he didn't seem to be ill at all. It's just that his expression was becoming increasingly gloomy by the day and he was becoming more and more ruthless. For the next few days, he frequently found his ministers to be saying the wrong things and punished them with dismissal and imprisonment. Even the lightest of offenses were being punished with being beaten for dozens of times, with the offender almost losing half of their life. The civil and military officials endured a few days of court and began to speculate in their hearts. The conclusion that everyone believed the most was that His Majesty had finally awakened from his infatuation with the imperial consort and was beginning to regret his decision to take in said concubine. Otherwise, based on how His Majesty doted on his imperial consort, why would he postpone the ancestral worship ceremony and not mention the wedding anymore? However, it was rare for young people to have their first awakening of love, so it was normal for him to not be able to get over it so easily. It was just them, the courtiers, who were suffering. The courtiers complained incessantly. Finally, on the 7th day of morning court, someone stood up. The court was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Jin Wang was dressed in a black and gold court robe. His fingertips casually tapped on the dragon throne as he narrowed his eyes dangerously. "Say that again." This tone of voice was bone-chilling. Minister Duan Chenzi of Taikang Temple stammered for a moment before bracing himself to say, this subject found a peerless beauty a few days ago, and wishes to present him to Your Majesty. Offer Zhen a beauty." Jin Wang slowly repeated these words and sneered. "Who gave you the courage?" "Your Majesty, please forgive this subject." Duan Chenzi fell to his knees with a thump. His Majesty said previously that he preferred a male Omega and that if this official found one with peerless beauty, then this official could offer this beauty to His Majesty. This official is just following the imperial edict. Jin Wang's fingertips paused. Did he say that? Perhaps he did. He had a headache from arguing with these courtiers for the past few days and used this as an excuse. It was hard to find a peerless beauty in this world, so he didn't expect that they would find one so quickly. And it just happened to hit the nail on the head. Jin Wang was so angry that he smiled and softly said, "Since it's a peerless beauty, of course this emperor would like to meet him." Duan Chenzi had just breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Jin Wang casually say, "However, if Minister Duan Chenzi exaggerates, he would be punished for the crimes of deceiving the emperor." As soon as he said this, Duan Chenzi immediately regretted it. However, the matter of offering a beauty had already been spoken. If he changed his words, it would be considered as deceiving the emperor right away. Duan Chenzi could only brace himself and say, "Of course, Your Majesty." Jin Wang calmly said, "Bring him in then." 4 eunuchs quickly carried a palanquin into the palace hall. The palanquin was wrapped in bright red silk. Duan Chenzi went over on his knees, grabbed the silk rope on one side, and pulled it with force. The 4 sides of the brocade cloth fell down, revealing a golden iron cage. The bottom of the iron cage was also covered in a thick layer of red silk, and a plain-clothed beauty lay on top of it. The cage wasn't small, and it was just big enough for a grown man to lie down. The beauty was curled up at the bottom of the cage, his face was rosy and peaceful. He was sleeping soundly without a care in the world. His long hair that reached the ground was spread out, revealing only half of his delicate and fair face. Just this half of his face was enough to make people stunned. However, Jin Wang lazily said, "Is that him?" His appearance couldn't even compare to 1/10,000th of Yeshu's. Was this the so-called peerless beauty? Deceiving the emperor is a serious crime. Drag him away and flog him 100 times. Jin Wang indifferently ordered. The eunuchs immediately went forward to drag him away. Duan Chenzi begged, "Your Majesty, please reconsider. He is a rare male Omega. Your Majesty, your..." As he cried and howled, the beauty in the cage seemed to be unable to bear the disturbance. He turned over on the soft red silk. The cinnabar mole that had been hidden behind his ear was finally revealed, and a fresh and sweet scent immediately enveloped the entire imperial court. The Omega scent was like plum blossoms after the rain, dainty and elegant. The sweet and sour taste made people salivate. Jin Wang's expression instantly changed. Almost no one could resist the sweet scent of Omega's pheromones. In the imperial court, many alpha became faintly aroused and began to secretly compete with each other. The beauty in the cage was disturbed by those scent. It seemed that he couldn't bear it as he frowned. He softly let out a low moan. "Oh! Not good." It was as if Jin Wang suddenly woke up. The next moment, a strong scent of an alpha's pheromone appeared in the imperial court. The emperor's scent was extremely condensed and had a strong offensive power. In an instant, it overshadowed everyone else's scent. The courtiers' legs became so weak that they almost couldn't stand. In the midst of this suffocating scent, the courtiers heard the young emperor on the dragon throne gently laugh, "I like this gift very much. Minister Duan is very thoughtful." When Yeshu woke up again, he was lying on a square bed. He rubbed his eyes and sleepily turned over. He had been in the hands of that Duan Chenzi for the past few days. Perhaps that person had given him some kind of sleeping drug. During those times, he was more asleep than he was awake that he couldn't even determine what day it was. Occasionally, when he woke up, he would hear Duan Chenzi say that he was going to offer him to His Majesty. Wait, offer him to His Majesty? Yeshu suddenly remembered that it was written in the book that not long after Prime Minister Yeshu's death, this Duan Chenzi began to search everywhere to look for peerless beauties that he could offer to the Emperor of Chenglu. Who would have thought that Jing Wang's picky eyes would find the offering simple and unappealing? He didn't even give the beauty that was being offered a second look and directly ordered people to drag her out and beat her to death. Duanjinzi was also beaten 100 times and almost lost his life. This wouldn't do. If he was really offered to Jin Wang as a beauty, wouldn't he be no different to a lamb in a tiger's den? No. He had to quickly escape. Yeshu dragged his sore body to sit up and pulled open the gauze curtain. He was so frightened by the person sitting quietly beside the bed that his entire body trembled. He was met with a pair of enraged eyes. The air went still for a moment. The next second, Yeshu's hand fiercely pulled the gauze curtain close. Jin Wang. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 21. Yangzin Palace Hall fell into a silence for a long while. Yeshu knelt on the dragon bed and looked at the figure outside through the bed curtains. His heart was beating like a drum. After going around in a circle, that Duanjinzi really did send him back, and he even sent him directly to the tyrant's bed. He was really done for this time. Yeshu gripped the silk blanket tightly. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What was going on? In the book, Duanjinzi had clearly presented a woman and Jin Wang didn't even take a liking to the beauty that was presented. He directly dragged her out and beat her to death. Wasn't this plot too different from what he had read? Yeshu raised his hand and touched his cheek. He realized that his disguise hadn't been removed. Could it be that Jin Wang had taken a liking to the face that he had disguised himself with by accident? If that was really the case, then shouldn't he put on an act? Outside the bed curtains, Jin Wang was so angry that he wanted to laugh. In these 7 days, he hadn't been able to close his eyes for a single night. The beauty that the Duanjinzi had presented to him was actually him. This was both mysterious and absurd. After the initial shock, what appeared in his heart was anger and fear. This little fool didn't even know how to escape properly. If the person who had captured him hadn't been the Duanjinzi but someone else with ulterior motives, would he still be alive? As expected, he couldn't be too gentle with him. With this thought in mind, Jin Wang reached out to open the bed curtain. Yeshu also happened to move at this moment. The two of them opened the curtain with one hand and suddenly looked at each other. There was a short silence. Yeshu was the first to react. He blinked his eyes innocently and said in a soft and weak voice, "You, who are you?" Jin Wang. Yeshu's gaze frantically scanned the palace hall for a moment, then returned to the man in front of him. He seemed to be a little afraid. "Why am I here?" Jin Wang, you. Yeshu seemed to have finally woken up. His face instantly turned pale. He hugged the silk blanket around him and hid in the bed. You are His Majesty. If that's the case, then Minister Duan really did send me here. I haven't even had the chance to see my mother for the last time. He looked as if he was about to cry. His eyes were filled with tears, making one feel pity for him. Jin Wang was so shocked by his actions that he forgot what he wanted to say. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have thought that this person could act so convincingly. His acting was quite good. Jin Wang coughed lightly. His expression was instantly restrained. His voice was gentle. "So, are you not willing to enter the palace?" Yeshu looked at him carefully, not daring to answer. Jin Wang said warmly, "This emperor would not do something as couth as to force others. If you are unwilling, this emperor will not force you." Yeshu's eyes lit up. Then Jin Wang ignored him and turned his head to order, "Drag this person away and beat him to death." No. I'm willing. Yeshu was so frightened that he almost fell off the bed. He grabbed onto Jin Wang's clothes with one hand. "Your Majesty, please don't kill me. I'm really willing to enter the palace." Jin Wang smiled. "Did the minister of Taikang Temple force you in any way?" Yeshu shook his head repeatedly. No. But just now, you clearly. This subject, cough, This commoner was just sighing with emotion. Yeshu looked at Jin Wang and braced himself to continue acting. Actually, this commoner has admired your majesty for many years. That's why I'm willing to enter the palace and be with your majesty. You admire Zhen? Jin Wang seemed to have heard an extremely amusing joke. He laughed mockingly. Don't people say that Zhen killed his father and brothers, started wars, was tyrannical and was heartless and unjust? What do admire this emperor for? Yeshu thought for a moment, then said seriously, the previous emperor was heartless and the imperial family indulged in pleasure. Outside enemies were eyeing us covetously, and the court officials were protecting each other and colluding in corrupt activities. Your Majesty's actions were all to save the people from disaster. Your Majesty is not heartless or unjust. Jin Wang's expression changed slightly. So you knew, he said with a sigh. Wadash. Before Yeshu could say anything, Jin Wang suddenly grabbed his wrist and pressed him onto the bed. Yeshu was enveloped by a familiar scent and he found it difficult to breathe. It was only now that he realized that the pair of handsome eyes that were so close to him were bloodshot. The sound of the door closing came from outside. The eunuchs in the hall had all left. Yeshu gulped. This dog of an emperor wouldn't want to. Jin Wang looked down at him and repeated softly, you clearly know everything. Yeshu didn't understand. What should I know? Jin Wang didn't answer. His eyes darkened slightly and his fingertips brushed across Yeshu's face, causing the person beneath him to tremble slightly. Yeshu had been delirious for the past few days and it had been many days since he had come into contact with Jin Wang's pheromones. When an Omega became pregnant, they desperately needed to be comforted by their alpha. The emptiness that he had been feeling was kept at bay by the effects of the drug he was given during captivity. However, the drug's effect had now faded and that emptiness was now making a comeback. This kind of instinctive desire overrode his own reason. He moved impatiently and reached out to grab Jin Wang's clothes. Your Majesty. The Omega's soft pleading almost made one lose all reason, but Jin Wang only looked at him and said softly, repeat what you just said to me. Yeshu paused for a moment, then obediently repeated, Your Majesty's actions are to save the people from disaster. Your Majesty is not heartless or unjust. Jin Wang placed his palm under Yeshu's chin and made him look straight at him. The sentence before that. Yeshu, the previous emperor was heartless. No, the sentence before that. Yeshu looked into the pair of stern eyes and probed. I have admired your Majesty for many years. I willingly entered the palace and am willing to stay by your Majesty's side. Jin Wang smiled, all right. As his voice fell, his fingertips finally reached the edge of Yeshu's human skin mask. With a slight tug, he removed the mask from Yeshu's face. The human skin mask fell to the ground, and that handsome and gentle face appeared in front of him. Yeshu. Yeshu smiled bitterly, good evening, your Majesty. Jin Wang maintained the smile on his face, good evening. There was silence again. The smile on Yeshu's face faded bit by bit, and he looked like he was about to cry. If I said that I was just going out for a walk that day, would you believe me? Jin Wang asked in return, what do you think? Of course not. His Majesty's lust may make him dizzy, but he was not a fool. Yeshu had a bitter expression on his face. Then is it too late for me to apologize now? Jin Wang was still expressionless, what do you think? Yeshu turned his head away, resigned to his fate, punish me. You should be punished. Jin Wang's tone was very light, but it revealed a sense of danger that made people shudder. You deceived the emperor, went back on your word, took the opportunity during the ancestral worship ceremony to escape from the wedding, and even did not hesitate to drug me. Each of these are capital crimes, each deserving of capital punishment. Yeshu, how do you think I should punish you? Yeshu turned his head to the side, his eyelashes trembling slightly, but he did not answer. If you don't say anything, then I will decide for myself. Jin Wang's eyes flashed with a teasing smile as his hand reached down and touched Yeshu through his clothes. Yeshu's entire body trembled. Jin Wang. Yeshu's voice trembled, but it was not because of discomfort, rather it was because of how good it felt. His body seemed to have an inexplicable dependence on Jin Wang. Just a light touch was enough to make him feel so aroused that he almost could not hold himself back. But Jin Wang only maintained his original position and did not make any other movements. Yeshu's eyes were red from being pressured by him. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Jin Wang was cold and emotionless as he said indifferently, "It's not supposed to make you feel good. Don't forget, this is punishment." Yeshu did not understand at first why Jin Wang said this was punishment, until he began to carry out the punishment. The imperial family had always had the tradition of sending palace maids to teach the princes about sexual matters, but the novel said that Jin Wang did not care about this and even chased away all the palace maids sent to teach him. In the novel, he clearly had a pure heart and few desires, but who knew why he was so knowledgeable in this world and knew many ways to torture his partner. Yeshu was soon tortured to the point of delirium. In the end, he was unable to break free from Jin Wang's control and had no choice but to cry and plead in every possible way, saying all sorts of soft words. This was truly the most terrifying punishment in the world. Yeshu sank into the dragon bed, exhausted. Jin Wang threw the silk handkerchief he used to wipe the filth off the bed and lay down as well. Yeshu instinctively shrank back. Jin Wang laughed in spite of himself. "Are you that scared?" Yeshu buried half his face in the quilt. His eyes were still slightly red, as if he had been greatly wronged. "All right." His gaze could always make people feel guilty. Jin Wang pulled him into his arms and whispered, "I won't punish you any more today. I'll let you off for now." Sexual intercourse was forbidden for the first 3 months, but Jin Wang's body was in great need of comfort, so he could only use this method. Not only did it help him relieve his pain, but it also served as a punishment. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeshu's breathing was unsteady. He leaned against Jin Wang's chest and panted softly. Jin Wang couldn't help but tease him, "If you can't take it after just 1 time, what will you do in the future? I haven't finished punishing you yet." Yeshu couldn't believe it. "You still want to punish me?" Jin Wang raised his eyebrows. "Do you think that your crime of running away can be cancelled out just like this? Dog Emperor! Idiot Emperor!" Yeshu was so angry that he ignored him. Jin Wang pulled the quilt and carefully wrapped him up. "It's still early. Sleep a little longer and then wake up for dinner," Jin Wang said. Yeshu was already tired after being tormented by Jin Wang. His eyelids drooped and he mumbled, "Fine." Jin Wang stroked his hair and snorted, "If you knew this day would come, why did you do it in the first place? Are you still going to run away in the future?" Yeshu was still sleepy. He closed his eyes and mumbled, "Of course I'm going to run away. If I don't run away, then I can only wait for you to bully me." Jin Wang's eyes were clouded with a trace of haze. "But I can't run away." Yeshu's voice was weak and filled with sleepiness. "I think it's better if I don't run away now. I'm so tired." A gloomy expression flashed across his face. Jin Wang took a deep breath and tightened his arms around him, trapping him in his embrace. "You're right. You can't run away." Jin Wang looked down at the youth in his arms. His finger brushed past Yeshu's ear. There was a trace of pity in his eyes. "Idiot, you couldn't run away since a long time ago. I won't let you go now." The incident at the ancestral shrine was an accident and Jin Wang would never make the same mistake twice. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile. He lowered his head and kissed Yeshu on the forehead. Yeshu slept until the middle of the night and was woken up by hunger. Yeshu rubbed his stomach and sat up. He accidentally touched the warm body beside him. Jin Wang was still sleeping. Yeshu lowered his head to look at him. There were still no lights in Yangzin Palace Hall. Only the moonlight seeped into the hall through the windows. Jin Wang slept on his side. Half of his handsome face was hidden in the darkness, while the other half was pale and cold under the moonlight. His face looked very tired. Yeshu looked at him and reached out to touch the shadows under Jin Wang's eyes. It was rare for Jin Wang to be in such a state. Even when the original betrayed him, Yeshu had never seen Jin Wang so tired and weak. As an emperor, he shouldn't show any weakness to the outside world. No matter when or who he faced, it was always like this. Was he really worried these past few days? Yeshu grew up alone without parents. He learned how to be friendly to others and tried his best to fit in, but the environment he grew up in made him distrustful and distant. He had a few friends by his side these past few years, but he was never able to trust them wholeheartedly. This was the first time he felt that someone in this world really cared about him. Yeshu's finger slid down and lightly poked Jin Wang's cheek. Actually, this feeling wasn't too bad. A rumbling sound came from his stomach. Yeshu rubbed his stomach and was about to get up to get someone to prepare something to eat when he heard a clinking sound. Just as he got up, he suddenly heard the crisp sound of metal chains colliding. Yeshu paused and looked in the direction of the sound. His white and slender ankles were shackled with a thin golden chain. The shackle was made of exquisite material and was thin and light. The inside of the shackle was also covered with a layer of soft wool, so it wouldn't chafe the skin of the person wearing it. The golden chain was long and sturdy. The other end of the chain was inserted into the bed and was firmly fixed in place where Yeshu couldn't see. Don't tell me. What's with this shackles? End chapter.